Passwordless, what does that mean exactly? So in our case, we will show you an alternative authentication method such as FIDO2. Maybe you're familiar with FIDO2. If not, we will briefly explain this. So how can, well, typically we use FIDO2. We make the relation with passkeys, which is the mechanism that is used. And of course, it's different from the passwords that we've been using for decades now. So it can be sometimes confusing. Sometimes you need SMS, you need Google Authenticator for two-factor authentication. So what are passkeys? Passkeys is in fact a consumer-friendly version of the FIDO2 and WebAuthn security standard. And FIDO stands for Fast Identity Online. It comes in different form factors. Maybe you've seen these keys with some people. Of course, security people like us, we like to use those. It's a safe way to store your credentials and public-private key pairs. Most familiar are the YubiKeys from Yubico. They're FIDO2 compliant, and it's different than a TOTP password or challenge that you get, because instead of having a challenge you need to input, you will be presenting a private public key pair towards a server that is capable of authenticating using passkeys. And of course the private key is something that you hold, so it needs to be stored somewhere, typically in a vault, and this can be the YubiKey, the hardware key. And well, okay, there's the private key, so it never leaves your environment, and the public key of your key pair is stored typically on the website. So these security keys are good for people like us, busy with security all day, but okay, if you want to bring this to the general public, Peter talked about making your e-commerce site accessible, making the user experience good for the end users. So you're not going to say you need a key now in order to come to my e-commerce site. That's a bit too difficult. So typically what we'll use as a vault, something you already have, your phone, your iPad, your MacBook. And if you're in the Apple ecosystem, then you can sync the passkeys using the Apple iCloud keychain. And same goes for the Google and Android ecosystem. Even with the Apple environment, you can even share passkeys using AirDrop. And I think in the latest version of iOS, you can even create different teams, or set up a team of people and share keys amongst those that are member of the team. Of course, something important to know is that a passkey is unique for every website or service. So that also means that, well, there's no password to be guessed, because we're talking about a public-private key pair here. And even if your device would get stolen, well, the thief cannot use your Face ID or Touch ID, and even then you still need a PIN in order to access the private key or make use of it. So that's an important security feature, is that passkeys are a way to prevent phishing, because they just cannot be phished. And then you could say, okay, well, what about a server side? Well, there's not, you hear all this news about databases leaking passwords, and well, using passkeys, there are no server leaks possible, because only the public keys are stored on the server side. So without the private key, it's useless. So when you sign in using a passkey, typically if the website or service is unable to use passkeys, it will give you a challenge And since you hold the private key pair, private public key pair, you're the only one that can respond to this challenge and provide an answer to the server. And once this is verified, you're signed in. So that's as easy as it gets. If you want to play around, that's completely possible. If you use the URL mentioned here, webauthn.io, then you can experiment with passkeys using your browser and have a look and see what it is exactly mentioned, and it allows you to experiment with it if you're not already familiar with that. So that was a very short intro on passkeys, since we'll be using that as an additional security mechanism in our demo. If you want to know more about passkeys, we have done a session already in the past about passkeys. I think it should be available on this channel or even on our YouTube channel. Maybe Peter, if you can put the link to our YouTube channel as well in the chat, so people get all the information. First thing that we will do with the demo here is that we will start with a CIAM-FIDO2RP.com website listing on port 9443. This will be our main demo application, which talks to the IBM Security Verify using the APIs that are exposed from Verify. And I will show you that first, and then I will show you how to build a Vue.js application using that Node.js as a proxy towards the APIs. So the proxy is actually simplifying the usage of the APIs, because if you look at the API reference catalog, it can be quite overwhelming to see, okay, what do I need to do? What parameters do I need? So we try to simplify this using this mechanism. I have put up a Git book as well as a learning material, so you can follow along by using the URL that you see on the screen there, ibm.biz learn FIDO2. And that's all. So let's go. Yeah, so if you're looking at the learning material on the Git book, okay, first setting up this service. So this proxy service, well, CI FIDO2 RP can be a bit difficult to remember, but it stands for Consumer Identity FIDO2 Relying Party. It's an Node.js application, and it allows us to do some demonstration and usage of passkeys, but it can also be used as a proxy. That's how we will use it also to connect with the Vue.js application. So first of all, there are some requirements on the Verify SaaS tenant. So we need to create an API with a client ID and secret, and that allows us to communicate using the API. So if we look at my environment, we see the API access. We have a FIDO2 entry in there. Let's see. It's just an entry, but you see we have a client ID and a secret, which we will need in our Node.js application in order to make the correct API requests. What else is needed? There are some entitlements. The minimal that you need is to be able to authenticate the user using the API. Of course, if you want to manage and control passkeys as a second factor authentication, we need to have the right to do that for the users, and also to manage the users, as we will need to create users as well. So let's see where we can find the entitlements. I just scroll down. Since I'm doing some testing, that is the most easy way. By selecting everything, then you're sure that you have all the access. Of course, in a production environment, you better restrict the accesses so you do not expose if something would happen with your API credentials. So that's about it for the API. So we have the client ID and a secret, and these need to go in a .env file. Let's see. Yeah. Another thing we need to do is create a FIDO2 RP definition for the website CIAM-FIDO2RP.com. Let's see where we have this. FIDO2 settings. That's the FIDO2 relying party. Oh, sorry, it's the CI-FIDO2. That's just the name and the relying party identifier. Include all device metadata. You can restrict the usage of certain security keys or security mechanisms. For example, if you want to limit that people need to have a FIDO2 key in order to use multi-factor authentication, then we can load up, for example, the YubiKey JSON file that you can download from Yubico, and you could input it over here, so it gets automatically checked that you need to have a key to make second factor authentication. So that's basically it. We're making 2 entries for the website that we will be using both for the proxy and for the Vue.js application. So that's mainly what we need for the on the side of the Verify configuration. Now the code repository, you can find it over here, and in fact it's a clone from our colleague from Australia, Shane Whedon, who has developed this application, but we made some modifications in order to make it fully without using any password at all. Some things you need to do is update your localhost file. So since we're using self-signed certificates, on that we need SSL. You need to update your localhost file to make it work. You can clone the repo, do an npm install, copy the environment variables, the example, and then modify using, in fact, these are the main entries you need to modify. Optionally you can do that, but it's not necessary since we're not using those OIDC client ID and secrets. And okay, so let's start it. I have already well, maybe let me show you first what the application looks like. So this is the environment. It's my tenant with the OID client ID and secret. You see it over there, and in fact then it's just a server.js exposing lots of APIs, but we will only be using some of them. And of course, when the application starts and the first access or request comes in, you will request a token from IBM Security Verify in order to make the further API calls. And all the details about the APIs, they're all served from CI services.js. So you have the code. I made some modifications to that, but you have the full source code. If go ahead and make modifications as you need to. But typically for the scenario that we're using, you're good to go using that one. So let's see what this application looks like. So typically I will use, for example, you see I have no user ID and password. The way I'm logging in is using my email address and an OTP code that I will receive through email. Now let me show you first. There's no magic going behind or prepared. I don't have an account using my iCloud email address. Okay, so let's get the code. Oh, lost it twice. Let's see. I'll take the most recent one. That should be corresponding with 8493. Just copy that one. Just delete both of them. Check the code, and we're in. We don't have any additional passkeys stored yet, but we should now see, if I do a refresh in the directory, that I now have my iCloud email address registered as a user. Now, we're doing this in a particular way. That is, the application creates the user account, like Peter showed when he had problems getting this email with his password, that he didn't get it, but here it's normal, we don't send it. So the user never gets to see his initial password, which he needs to change. It's a temporary password, but still the account is created. We just don't send him the confirmation. And normally, if you don't know the link, you will never be able to change that password either. So, but for our purposes, that's just the way we want it. We can have a look at the details. It's pretty basic, just an email address. And for the MFA settings, nothing is registered yet. So what we can do now is we can set up a new registration. You see that it will create the passkey using the Chrome plugin. Well, plugin is standard behavior of Chrome. So the Chrome will generate a private public key pair, and that will need to be verified with my Touch ID or my password of my MacBook. I can just call it Chrome Passkey. I can save the registration, and now you see it's Chrome Passkey is the friendly name of the passkey that is being generated and stored on the Verify SaaS environment. So if I look back here now, on my account, I see I have the FIDO2 registration for my Chrome passkey. On the Verify SaaS, you don't see a lot of details, except for these dates. That's nice thing about this application. You can really, using the APIs, get a bit more details about this Chrome passkey. The public key, like we mentioned, the public key is something, well, it's public, it's stored on Verify SaaS, but the private key stays within your browser. That's about for the details. If you want to test it here, you can also test it within your browser. You can verify it and it will say it's successful. What else is to say about this? Let's see if we can log out. Now I'm not going to use login with the email address. I could still do that, but it's not necessary. Now I have this passkey. I can use it from my browser. And you see, I'm automatically logged in using a Chrome passkey. There's no password being exchanged, no OTP, anything, just using this passkey, which makes it unique for this website. If you're not familiar with passkeys and how they are stored in Chrome, you can have a look at Google Password Manager. Go to your settings and then you can see Manage Passkeys, and I have here 2 of them for my Gmail account and iCloud account. So that's basically what this application is all about. So it's a nice way to experiment with it, a bit similar like the webauthn.io website, which can be more used as a reference, but it's a nice application just to experiment here and see how it interacts using the APIs towards IBM Verify. Now, like I mentioned, so let's go back here to our diagram. We've done this part, so we have this application up and running, and you can use it interactively, but it also exposes API, which makes it a bit more easier to create a Vue.js application, which typically could be used as a front end. In a production environment, for example, you could put this in a Docker container, secure it in your Kubernetes environment, and only allow communication from this website towards this proxy, and that will also not expose or even make it more secure, since your API keys will be stored over here. So I think it's quite unique, Peter, that we're using here completely passwordless. There's no password in here, so that's the nice thing about this. You can just register. I can still log in using my OTP if I want, but
yeah. And on the server side, there's no way you can leak your password. So that's the making full use of passkeys.
Yeah. And even if you would guess the URL where you would need to change the password, still you need the email address in order to make that reset or whatever. So let's have a look at the next step. There are no questions for the moment.
No questions on the chat, no.
So it's a bit explained here on the Git book. The steps I've been demoing. So it's really connected the passkey to this URL. It's unique for this website. So these are the main things you have seen. Now, as a next step, it becomes a bit more development, I would say. I will not go in too much details, but still give you some ideas. If you follow this guide, you should be able to have the same Vue.js application ready to play around with and use these APIs and passkeys. Some links here to, if you're not familiar with Vue.js, is still one of the popular frameworks being used next to React and Angular, I would say. So let's go quickly through the steps. It's all explained here. To install an application from scratch, we create a shopping cart application. We select some defaults about the router versioning, and briefly, Pinya and GSRS assign. It's Pinya is in fact a state management framework that allows you to share components, pages, information across different pages. So if you, for example, we will show you that once you're logged in, you're authenticated with the application. We want to keep state of that. If you're switching to another page, he needs to know you're authenticated. So that's why this Pinya library allows you to do that. And the GSRA sign is used to implement some JavaScript crypto libraries. You'll find a link over there, but they're used to communicate or to make I would say the challenges and the keys exchange using the Passkeys, making use of that library. So once you have installed these Pinia and crypto library, then you can just run serve and it will launch the application. Now you will see a very basic application, and then the next steps are just really to customize and use the libraries. Maybe it's an idea that we do in a follow-up session and really go down from the bottom up and learn you how to program with this Vue.js. If you're interested in seeing that, please let us know. We can spend a lot of time on that. So the next thing is let's have a look at some products. Well, let me first show you the application, what it looks like. Close this one. So this is the application, how it looks like. So you see that Buy at Acme has 3 MacBooks in store. So these are the products that we want to present. You can easily do that just by running a service, having these JSON definitions. That's a pretty basic JSON file. I'm running this on a Mocoon service. You can run this in different environments, but in fact this products, what it does is just a get to /products, and it will return you the 3 items. That's basically it. We can already test this. If we do a refresh, you can see that's just a JSON being returned. And this is the data that is presented also in the application. What's next? Yeah, some store definitions. Typically in Vue.js, using Pinia, for example, we can well, the syntax is use a product store. We define a store, and then, like we mentioned, it's all about state management. We will return a product, and of course the products initially is empty, but by defining an action within this product store JS file, we can define a method get products that will fetch on this URL the products, the JSON file, and then we'll return it and fill it up by using this.products with the prods. That will be stored within our array, and we'll keep there with the state management of using Pinia. Some more details about the app.view. That's the initial app that is launched when you launch the application or get to this shopping cart application. It says here we importing this code that we defined before, and we will make use of the product store, and then we will call the main method, the get products, which was defined here. So when the application launch at setup, it will get the products and will return that. Okay. So you will store that in products. Let's see if I can show you that over here. The nice thing about Vue.js is that you get a Vue extension within Chrome. And where is it? Components? No? Maybe refresh it. Yeah. If we look into the Pinia store, of course we have a console here which was logged. I have the 3 products being returned, the JSON file. And I can see also in my Pinia state that the products are stored here. There are 3 objects stored in that. So I can make use in my presentation layer in a view to make use of those or refer to those products. Yep. We don't need this one anymore. This is the Vue.js code. So basically, we have the app.vue, which contains a bit more, but the initial step here was to use the product store, get the main products. That's how it's accessed, and then the product store is just get the products from our local Mocoon service. Now the home view. The home view is typically a view in Vue.js, contains HTML code, a script, and well, in this case it's not applicable, but you can also add some CSS styling in that same. So that's the nice thing about Vue.js. You have 3 blocks, HTML, scripting, and CSS all in one file. So for each product, we will make the items available using the product ID from the Pina state. So that's basically it. Let's see what else is in there. I'm not gonna go into all the details, but if you copy the code and put them in the right place and you start to learn a bit about Vue.js, you will understand how this is all linked together. So first of all, we have the products. We want to use for each product, we want to show the item. The item again contains the cards, so each item is a card with some styling next to that. Yeah, here you see the styling, so the fact that it's becoming bigger and smaller, that's all in there. And of course we also need a card store, because if we put something in our cart, we want to have it updated in our card store. Again, this card store contains one item. If I add another one, you see it's being added into my cart. Again, I can use this cart further in my application to make something or react on that doing the checkout or whatever. So that's a lot of Vue.js coding. The index.html is used to add some frameworks like Bootstrap to make it more visibly attractive. And also the crypto library is added on that page as well. And finally, there's some steps to complete the full application. The navigation header, for example, this is the top part. This is very important for us since we will do the sign in very soon. And then, for example, we can check using the Pina store of auth user if the user is authenticated or not. And if he is if he's not authenticated, we present the login view. So once he is authenticated, we should be able to put the auth store username in there. Yeah, some final additions to make the navigation header part of the main application. And then some shopping cart information to make the whole shopping cart experience, like you can add and delete items from the shopping cart. That is part of this section. And then the login view, that's where it becomes interesting, where we will make use of all the code. Yeah, let me first show you how it works. Are you still with me, Peter?
I'm with you. It's 10 past 4, so we have, let's say, 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Well, where's my mouse? Yeah. So if I click the sign in button, again, I could use well, let me clear this one again. Users and groups. I can delete the iCloud account again, and the same works over here, iCloud.com. I should get an access code. There it is. And I'm logged in. So automatically you see that if authenticated, then the GUI changes as it puts the username over here. And looking at the view state now, I can see in my auth store that I have my user, I have the credential, and I can say is authenticated true, which makes it appear my user interface that my account is being shown over here. I also get, if I now click on the account settings, in fact I show the information I see that I get back from Verify when I first log in using the OTP challenge. So there's some things in the logs, but that's the nice thing about this application. You can play with it and I put some information to debug in the logs to see what is going on. As the next step, I could, of course, my user is being created again on Verify without any password. My user is there. There is a password, but we don't know it. It's a temporary password that's being set on the account. Let's see if that works. Set up a passkey. I create the iCloud. Now the only thing I need to do is log out. It doesn't do it automatically here, but on my user I should see the MFA settings, browser passkey. Now this is, but the fact that it's called browser key is the application automatically puts this name, the nickname or friendly name as part of this FIDO2 registration. And now when we sign in, I can just log in with my passkey. I think it's the first one. No. He still had one from the previous, so I think it's the second one. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So you see that's well, both passkeys are related to this website, so that's why it's a bit confusing. But you see that the public and private key pair really needs to match. Even though he has presented it because it's the same URL, base URL, it was not able to work. If we now look at the account settings, you can see that we have this browser passkey being part of this user account. So let's see what else is in there. Yeah, some code that you can complete. Now the authstore.js contains in fact the most code to send, for example, an OTP challenge. It's pretty simple, I would say. If you look at this API, all it needs to do is get the email address of the user that you typed in, send it over to the URL, and that send OTP next to it, and our proxy service will capture that and do everything what is needed to talk to verify. That really simplifies the whole process. Same for the check OTP. just the URL, check OTP, and it will fire it off to our CI FIDO2 RP listening on this port 9443. So this is the code you can just use, and there are lots of more code in there. For example, the whole passkey communication is a bit more difficult since it involves multiple steps also from the Verify side. If you look at the FIDO2 authentication APIs from Verify, which you can find on docs.verify.ibm.com, there are some different steps that you need to take in order to initiate a FIDO2 authentication. Then you get the challenge, then you need to encrypt it, and so that's where the crypto libraries come into place. You need to send it back, and then you get an answer back. So it involves multiple steps, but all the code is available for you to play around and test with it. The fact that the passkey is presented when we try to log in using a passkey is because it's using the navigator credentials, the Firefox APIs from your browser to make this interaction with your browser. So here you can see that the client data JSON, there's some byte arrays or responses being prepared in order to make the right attestations towards Verify. But I think that would simplify really the process if you want to implement such an application as I've done over here. What else is in there? The account view, so the view that you see over here, that is also explained. Yeah, and then something that is part of the Vue.js router is that, of course, if we go to /account, we want to avoid that if you're not authenticated, that you still could use this URL. Let me sign out. So if I would type in /account, I want to avoid that. Still, you get to this page of the account, and that's how we can do this. Using this router is some additional parameters as for the account. It has a metadata requires authentication true, and then for every request that gets access to your website, you can verify, okay, is this metadata available from my request? So meaning that we're trying to access /account, and then we can verify if our user is authenticated, then it's okay. If not, just go back to the login to the root of this website. So that's mainly about it, and I just added one additional component. Yeah, this one. This is for the SSL communication. You can just find this as a reference to make your Vue.js SSL enabled. And okay, if you're logged in, you get a status of authenticated true, but that will never disappear. So I could log in next day and still be authenticated. So what I've implemented also over here is some additional code in the main app.vue application, where I set some timers. So when the page is loaded, when it's mounted, we set up timers. In my case, it's about 5 minutes. So if you're active, it will monitor key press, mouse moves, touch moves. If you're not accessing the page for 5 minutes, he will make it inactive, and he will in fact call a function of our auth store library, just do a logout, meaning that everything is cleared, you're not longer authenticated. So that's a lot, I would say, if you're not familiar with Vue.js, but like I said, maybe we need an additional session to